Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thanks for joining us today for our eSPEAKS special session. It's a video session one-on-one. Today, our guest is Zeus Kerravala, who is a networking analyst, well known in the field, and one of our regular eWEEK writers. Zeus, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. It's always a absolute pleasure to do these eSpeaks with you.
No, they're kind of fun, and we get to
Yeah, they are fun.
do different backgrounds, which are fun.
Yeah,
Too. So
yeah.
to colorize everything.
Those are some big computers behind you.
I know. I got to turn around and start working on them.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got some news in the networking field this week. A lot of news, but we're going to have to just touch on the top of it. We've got Nokia with some news. Oracle actually came out with some networking news yesterday too. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but there's a lot going on in terms of what you're seeing with maybe the minimization or maybe the fading away of the multi-cloud concept for something else. What would that be?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a fascinating time in networking. First of all, I've been covering networking technology a long time, and the network's always been one of those things that you could argue about the value. A lot of business leaders didn't really take much heed of it, but the network has continued to increase in value because we live in a world where everything's connected. I actually just got some survey data back that I asked the question: Did has the pandemic increased the value of the network? And well over 60% of the respondents said yes, indeed, the network today is more valuable than it was before the pandemic. And so, I do think for companies where networking doesn't have a seat at the table, they need to have a seat at the table because the network's more important. Now, the question you asked is an interesting one. We've looked at this concept called multi-cloud for a while, and that is, from a definitional perspective, it's the ability to tie all your different clouds, your Amazons, your Googles, your Rackspaces, VMwares, the Oracles, things like that, together with your private cloud and have that work as one cohesive compute unit. And the network was the thing that actually was that connectivity fabric between them. I think what I'm starting to see from the research I've done is this concept of multi-cloud rapidly come to an end and expand and grow to something that I'm calling multi-compute. And what I mean by that is the edge has become a lot more important a part of every cloud provider strategy, every enterprise strategy. But unlike cloud, where everything was one big centralized data center, there is no single edge, right? It depends on who you talk to. So the mobile operators have the mobile edge. The telcos have the service provider edge. There's an IoT edge. I talked to one company that was looking at those things behind you, those personal computers, right? As in some ways a form of edge, right? AI edge, right? And so I think the edge has become continued to grow in importance. We're going to have more compute in more places, but adding to that complexity is at that edge and in the cloud and in the data center, compute can run on bare metal, it can run on containers, it can run on virtual machines, and so now we've got this kind of messy quagmire of compute stuff where there's containers and VMs running all over the place. We're going to have more data in more places. And again, we're going to look at the network to be the thing that ties these together. And so that puts a real emphasis on network resiliency, reliability, performance, a lot of the things that maybe, that good enough network isn't going to be able to deliver anymore. And I think companies really need to start taking a look at their network strategies and make sure it's in alignment with this multi-compute world.
Yeah. What companies are you seeing, Zeus, that are progressive in this area that you think we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, well, it is interesting. I saw the Nokia news, and they're an interesting company because they're coming at it from the service provider world where performance, reliability, things like that are really the standard, right? I mean, every service provider has to build a network in a way that it's always on and always reliable. Otherwise, they're going to lose, companies hand over fist, right? It's just not going to work. I think another one interesting to watch is Cisco. They've completely revamped their networking group, and so now they have an enterprise group, and then they also created this mass data infrastructure group. I think they call it something like, led by Jonathan Davis, and it's the old service provider group, but they've taken the principles of intent-based networking and brought it there and built up this mass scale type of equipment. And I think that carrier grade reliability that companies like Cisco and Juniper and Arista have delivered historically, although most of them start from one specific location, like with Arista, it's web scale, with Juniper service provider, but now they're all trying to branch into these other areas. And so, these are things that that are kind of interesting to watch. I think another interesting one to watch is Extreme Networks. They're one that I was almost forgotten about them, but they did buy Brocade's data center assets, and Brocade was a very well-respected data center company, and they married that with the cloud networking from Aerohive and the fabric from Avaya, and they've got a pretty interesting story to tell. So the thing to remember, though, is that we used to think of networks as the wireless network, the service provider network, the campus network. There is no delineation between these networks anymore, right? It's important for our listeners to understand there is one network, right? And these things have to, all these different subdomains have to work together to deliver this best-in-class experience.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot to take in. Go back to Nokia for a second. I wrote a piece about, or I'm going to write a piece today about them. They have had to rebound completely after losing the phone business to the iPhone, basically, in 2007. And they ended up buying Alcatel-Lucent and some other companies to build their networking business. And they're strong in Europe. They're a European company. They're trying to push into the United States right now with some of these new products. What do you think their prospects are, just off the top of your head, competing with the Shark Tank of competitors, some of which you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting road to hoe for Nokia. I think you're right. They had the mobile, and it's funny how quickly market leadership in mobile's changed, right? We went from Nokia to BlackBerry very quickly, and then as quickly as we went from Nokia to BlackBerry, we went from BlackBerry to Apple and Android, right? So their business prospects were certainly turned upside down. I did like the Alcatel-Lucent acquisition, and understand this was the IP division of Alcatel-Lucent. The enterprise division still is owned by Huaxin, a private equity firm. But that group at ALU at the time, led by Basil Antoine, who's actually part of Nokia now, was one of the most well-respected carrier networking groups in the industry. I don't think their market share really ever reflected the quality of product that they had, right? And again, that's part of it was the decline of that company combined with the rise of Cisco, Juniper, things like that. So I did think the capabilities they had were tremendous. People that used Alcatel equipment, loved it. With that being said, I do believe that what creates market share gain opportunities is market transitions. And we are seeing a transition now from this world of, we went from on-prem to cloud and cloud to multi-compute. So I do think there's an opportunity to try and insert themselves and solve a problem that nobody else can solve, right? Now that's easier said than done. So I do think that they need, some stronger marketing. I think the product quality is there. I just think that they need to do a bit of work on their name brand recognition and getting people to understand what Nokia is today, because neither Nokia nor Alcatel-Lucent were really household names on the enterprise buying side. And so, they can take this from the service provider in, but I do think it's an uphill battle for them. But they are the products the company has are, that's not the problem. It's really more a matter of brand. And the U.S. is a very brand-driven market.
Right. And if the products are good, then hopefully sales will follow. And that's what I'm sure that they're going for.
Yeah, but the U.S. market's more than just good products, right? There's lots of good products out there. You need to really help the buyers understand what problem you're solving and do the right marketing, because people, especially now, the one thing I've taken away from the COVID era is people are making safe choices. They want to make sure that whoever they're using for the next the next wave of networking is somebody they're familiar with, they're safe, and so they have a bit of work to do on the sales and marketing side.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, Zeus, thanks for keeping us up to date on networking world, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think we should do lots of these. There's so much going on in networking. I haven't seen this kind of innovation in networking since the early days of the internet. So it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where, I'm watching 7 or 8 different major IT segments, all the time. And networking is by far the busiest right now. And so
and all those other segments actually depend on the network too. You think of IoT, cloud, mobility. Right. None of those things work without the network, right? So the network has become front and center, and that's a great thing for folks like us that are in this space.
All right, Zeus Kerravala, zkresearch.com.
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks for being on with our eWEEK eSpeaks this time. And thank you all for following along with us today, and the rest of you have a great rest of your eWEEK. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.